And we're back with Survivor 42 and 42. Just finished Millennials versus GenX. Adam Klein just won. He swept, all that jazz. We're going to get to everything involving that win. I will say that starting off, watching it this time, I think because of the conversations I've had the last couple of days with the seasons in the 30s, it's still a good to great season for me. It's just that now that I have this thing in my head of Cambodia really like set the stage for these big moves and these advantages and the editing of certain characters, that results in the burial of other players. Like I really just had that in my head this time around, and it's very apparent with this season. But we're gonna get to that a little later. I'm joined once again by Ross and Jacob. Now this is the first season in the Fiji era. And I love the location and all that jazz. Ross, we'll start with you. What did you think of the Millennials versus Gen X twist, or the way the tribes are divided?
Obviously it's dumb, but like you gotta divide the tribes by something, and I think it's one of the better times that they were able to divide them by age. So I like that, and they got rid of it really quick. So I think it was just you got to divide them somehow. Let's have a little shtick, and they it was fine.
Jacob, if you want to answer that question first, go ahead. But then I have another question for you off of that.
No problem. As a Gen Zer, neither a millennial or Gen Xer, I think that's how the logistics of this all work after millennials.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's better than race. It's better than gender.
Better than race. Yeah,
I'll take that. I'll give you that. Honestly, I'll take it.
The other question I want to ask is, just looking at it, it doesn't seem like we're going to have one tribe dominate the other one at the beginning, and in fact they go back and forth until the swap. So as you're watching it in the very beginning, the first couple of episodes, did you think that at any point one tribe could take like a big enough advantage that it would totally steamroll the other at a swap and or merge?
Actually, that's probably the most interesting part about this season, why I look at this so fondly. I actually asked to do this because this is actually my favorite season. Like, I call back to Nicaragua, and I felt like there was no point in the show where I'm like, one of the older people are going to win. I'm like, the younger people are just completely, like, to the point where they don't even need the medallion of power to beat them in challenges. Like, they're foregoing it. Like, you could just have that. Like, the fact I even remember the medallion of power, it's just...
You know who didn't remember the medallion of power when they did the Nicaragua podcast? Me. I didn't bring up the medallion of power at all during it when I went back and watched. Jacob, keep on going. I'm sorry.
No problem. No. I felt it was fair. It was even. I felt invested. Like this pull and tug of, not only just like challenge wise, but also like editing wise. Like I felt pulled like back and forth between multiple different favorites from each tribe I'm rooting for. Adam and Hannah on this side, and I got David. And Jessica on the other side. There's some other underrated players here. Michaela. I really liked Michelle. I really liked the bits that we got from Will. Rest in peace, Sunday. I really enjoyed Brett. Really liked Chris. I think The Amazing Race did me a lot of favors for them in retrospect. Like in hindsight, I like them a lot more as characters. Like there's so many people who I felt invested in on both sides, both challenge wise and editing wise, that I never felt one overpowered the other.
No, and I do agree with you on that. I do feel like it was very even. As far as editing, we'll get to that a little later on, but I do feel like a couple players were kind of sacrificed, while others, I mean, even if you want to look at the winner and the person finishes in fourth, where it's similar to Cambodia, where this is mostly the David Wright show until it's not. And similar to Kelly Wentworth, this is the Kelly Wentworth show in Cambodia. It's the Aubrey show in Ko Rong. And I feel like, and I know this is like the third episode in a row that I've said this, but I feel like this is the point in Survivor history where the editors and production are like, we're tired of these people being able to guess who's going to win or who's they're going to win. So let's just bury the winner for a little bit or make them come off a different way, and let's put all of our eggs in one person's backside so that when they don't win, we can be like, see, you can't figure it out anymore. And I feel like that's what happened with Adam and David this season. But once again, towards the end, I felt myself, obviously, as a millennial, sadly, I felt myself more invested in the millennials. I feel like the millennials had the more appealing characters. With the Gen X side, I mean, besides maybe Ken and David, they were either non-memorable to like they get better at merge. So on the millennial side, we have, like you said, Michaela, Zeke, everyone, and then we have Figtails, which I tweeted out today is the worst duo in the history of the show, and it's not hyperbole. I do not like Figtails at all. It's cringe with a lot of the stuff that goes on with them. But I felt really attached, and this is my first reference of her this episode. I felt really attached to Hannah Shapiro very early on, and that attachment carried over into 2022. Adam wasn't one of the people that I really linked up with, as the season started. So Ross, what were your opinions on Adam pre-merge, and even if you want to go pre-swap?
I'm surprised she didn't get voted out, to be honest. Like, I feel like it's one of the more messy winner wins we've seen, which is fun in a way. But I definitely was surprised. Even David too. It's surprising that they make. It's almost like the people who make it far is not how you expect in this season, which makes it better. But yeah, definitely Adam, not someone I thought was going to go super far. I was surprised when he won. I didn't think until it was final three, I did not think he was going to win. I figured it was going to be like someone else. Like, it was a very surprising win overall.
Okay. And Jacob, how about the other person? What were your thoughts on David? The other big name from the season. What were your thoughts on David starting off? Because like Jeff says, the reunion, there was a lot of growth in a lot of these players throughout the season. And I feel like David, more than anyone, saw that growth. So what were your initial thoughts on him?
Yeah, no, David was just David was a goner after episode 2. I thought, like, David screwed. Like, they're trying to milk all the humiliation they could get out of David, how he's misplaying the whole idol thing, how paranoid he is. He covers his ears when people cut up bamboo. Like, he's erratic, he's scheming, he's untrustworthy. But then, like, it feels like an anime where, like, the main character all of a sudden gets this, like, massive buff. Like, the second that Jessica move comes out, he pulls out that idol. It's like he completely changes after that. Like, he just, like, completely transforms into way more competent of a strategic player. He emerges as a strong threat. He emerges and becomes the figurehead of his alliance. Like, that's David's alliance. Like, I don't see that being, like, Adam, Ken, Hannah, David contingent as anything other than David's posse, David's team, David's army in this war. And so David being able to undergo this transformation, like, I liken this back to Fishback. Fishback started off as this city boy who knows absolutely nothing about the outdoors, who's kind of a bit more on the nerdy side of things, but then emerges as this more cutthroat and strategic player, but does so in a way where actually he garners, I guess not really much in Fishback's case at the end of the day, but he garners a lot of the respect of the jury and is looked back as one of the best to not have won.
I'll give you that. And I do say that I out of everyone in the season, besides Hannah, I really appreciate David's growth on the season. But going back one round where Mari goes home, that is the tribal that, even though it's the second tribal of the season, it really sets the stage for what tribals are going to be like this season and pretty much every season afterwards, where it's just a bunch of mess. No one knows what's actually going on. There's a couple people that do, and they just have to try to make sure that everyone else catches on. And Jeff is just enjoying it. This is where we start to get peak, like, cringe dad Jeff. Like, it used to be cringe, like, embarrassing. Why are you saying these things, Jeff? But now it's just like, oh man, this guy's way too excited for these folks. But he's watching all this stuff happen. Yes, exactly. He's way too invested. And I actually prefer that, Jeff, anyway. But we have the Mari vote. Hannah has her moment where, she can't decide. They get back. She has the moment where she's trying to talk to Zeke and Adam, and they just need some time. They just need some time to themselves, and she wasn't hearing it at that point. And this is where we first established the cool kids-ish alliance of Figtails, Jay, and Michelle, and we'll throw in Will Wall as well as like a fifth. And thankfully, they are split up when we get to the swap. Now, Figtails are together along with Adam. Thank goodness, because I think if they were with almost anyone else, both of them make the merge. And but the swap tribe, we have 3 episodes of a swap. Every single episode, each tribe goes. And the most important part of that is the last vote out before the merge, which I want to get to because we will have to talk about Michaela, who I loved this season. I was so glad they brought her back. Ross, what were your thoughts on Michaela before the vote out? Because I want to talk about that one differently. What were your thoughts on Michaela this season?
Oh, I really liked her this season. Like, I don't remember too much about her game and Game Changers because I don't remember like anything about that season. But I was when rewatching this, I really liked her. I thought it was absolutely hysterical that she shows like she starts doing a little bit of thinking and Will's like, oh my God, she's too smart. She has to go. And it's like the funniest thing ever because it's like she's doing like basic Survivor and they're like, she's
math with rocks. with rocks. Jacob, thoughts on Michaela for the season? And were you surprised and or glad that they brought her back the following season?
Oh, no, now I'm happy that they brought her back for Survivor, but that's even extended out to like the challenge. Like I was happy that she was even in contention for that as well. Same thing with Jay. I'm conflicted on that moment because this is when my love for Jay started. It peaked off because I think the stench of Figtails was lingering around Jay a little bit too much, and I thought Jay was kind of smelly. But then Jay does I did it. And that's just such that moment. It's like Kaser saying, "I sealed your partner's fate." Like that gave me the same effect, like the chills down my spine. So I love Michaela, and I love it. Much to Ross's credit, like the rocks, like was like,
yeah.
What is that?
I think I had like a different one with you, where like I didn't mind Jay in that Cool Kids Alliance. Like he was fun. I enjoyed his confessionals. I enjoyed him at the swap. And then, he finds the idol. He's going to tell Will, blah, blah, blah. What turned me off to Jay until probably him and Adam in the hammock was him seeing Michaela being smart by, like what Ross said, literally just doing basic math of this is the 4 of us. No matter who we get rid of here, we're going to the merge. These are the numbers. This is how we get to Final 4, which is not, it's not the first time that's been talked about on the show. It's not the 33rd point that this has been talked about on the show. But Jay sees that. Jay and Will talk to each other. Jay and Will decide to blindside Michaela in what I think is the best blindside reaction of all time and probably one of the best blindsides period of all time. And I immediately got turned off to him because I was like, it didn't seem like, and maybe there was actual other reasons, but it didn't seem like that would have been a good enough reason at that point to vote out Michaela. Especially because Michaela was at least a part of his Cool Kids Alliance on the original Millennials tribe. So Ross, do you think there were any underlying things, and I'm not implying anything with saying that. I know that underlying might sound like something else, but do you think there were other things in play that would make Jay make this decision when he did?
I think he could have been threatened by her. I mean, she was dominating the competitions, and she was obviously a huge threat. So definitely, she also wasn't the most friendly with his dude Taylor, which could have been another thing as well. She was openly against Figgy and Taylor, so that could have played a role in it too.
No, Michaela is. I love her in this season, and I think she gets dicked over in Game Changers as far as how she's portrayed. But I really love Michaela in this season, and it sucked to see her leave then because I would have loved to see her work in the merge and see who she potentially would have worked with. I guess I should point this out because besides Cook Island, and I put this in the description, besides Cook Islands, this season I feel like is a season that a lot of people have started to turn on throughout the years, and I think it's because every person of color gets voted out pre-merge. Every single person of color gets voted out pre-merge.
Wait, what?
A lot of what's up? Yeah. Well, yes, exactly. So,
Lucy, Michaela, Cece.
Yes, and so I think that's why so many people started to turn on it. Now, me personally, like, yeah, it sucks, and like I would have rathered some of those people made the merge, but it doesn't totally just cut it off for me. Just like Race Wars doesn't really screw up Cook Islands for me. But I just wanted to point that out. Small elephant in the room of I know people kind of don't like Millennials versus Gen X anymore because of the optics, but so we hit the merge. Oh my goodness! Did everyone hear that? I just farted on it's fine. We hit the merge, and it like I don't remember which one of y'all said it, but I think it was Jacob, but it immediately is not Millennials and Gen X. Like they try to make it look like it is, but the entire time it is people rallying the troops because we know what's about to happen next. We know that it's going to be, we know that we have Zeke. We know that we have David. We know that we have Jay. And they said Chris as well as like these threats that are going to be running the merge. So everyone just fall in a camp. And when shit hits the fan, you better be on the right side of said shit. And we get to the final 9. Is that where the rock draw happens? Final 9?
10.
Final 10. And for the third time ever, we get a rock draw. Ross, just explain what happens going to this situation. And do you think that everyone, except for Jessica, because she does go home, everyone made the right move in that situation besides Jessica?
Well, I think part of it at that, I don't get it on Will. I think I've seen it explained later that he thought Jessica was going to flip, so he didn't flip preemptively to fight that. But like, on him in particular, I don't get it. Like he doesn't like Jay's going to be fine. Like I don't see it totally from his perspective why he wouldn't do it because like he can flip whenever he wants. He's kind of a free agent. From that side, I think David, Adam, and them like they kind of have to like you might as well like you can't be afraid of like the 1 in what was it 6 or 8 or whatever shot. You just got to take it. I don't think
he says he doesn't really care like in that situation, but also he flips the very next episode.
Yeah. Because you can't flip because then you're gonna like I think someone says it in the reunion, you lose all those jury votes. You can't flip.
Yes. Jacob, what did you think of Jessica pulling the wrong rock? Did you feel for her or was it more of you brought this on yourself?
No, I felt for her because I could just see like the terror, like how distraught she is on her. Even before it happens, like she's like,
I don't want to go to rocks. Like, I don't want to go to rocks.
I feel it. I just feel bad about this. Like I really feel for her in this moment because she was one of the Gen Xers that were left. I really felt like invested in. Like I think Jessica is very much underrated. Like we see her all the time on YX Lost on Survivor, and I've tried my best to keep up with that series, and it's really given me a newfound like respect for her outlook on the game, her philosophies on the game. And like now looking back, like with the knowledge that I know about and this bias, of why X lost, I really felt for her. I felt for her even more now than I did all the way back then in my first watch.
And this is, I don't know if this is how it happened in person, but like, it seems like she's the one that's being the most vocal about, I don't want to go to rocks. And I'm interested to know if in that situation, like, because clearly we all know eventually that she's going to be the one that draws the rock. But I want to know if she was the only one saying that, or was that a production thing where it's like, we're only going to show her doing it so that when she inevitably draws the wrong rock, you feel even more for her because we just sat here watched her not want to do this. So that's just something that I thought about watching it this time around.
If you don't want to go to rocks, you got to flip. Like, I don't feel bad.
Yeah. The other important thing about Jessica is this is the first time that we get the legacy advantage on the show. This is also, this is like I keep saying, they just keep adding advantages from 31 or 30 to, and we're just steadily getting to the point where you have a menu by the time you get to 38. So it's just, I think the legacy advantage is one of the good ones where it's like, I would be fine with the legacy advantage coming back. But, in a little bit, we're going to get Advantage Geddon. Tomorrow night, we're going to get Advantage Geddon, and it's just going to kind of hit the fan. I know that I used that already, but it's going to hit the fan again. So we move on to the Will Wall thing. And anyone that listens to this show knows that I'm not the biggest fan of Will Wall. I'm sure he's a great person in real life and all that. And I know that he's not the first person to say the phrase resume. I think Tasha said it first in Cagayan. But Will Wall, in his 2-episode story arc where he's not not invisible, and talks about his resume and building it, and people are not going to respect me at the end if I don't have a resume. I feel like that has really, in my opinion, for the worst, plagued not only the online community, like the online gaming community, but also just certain players that go out and play the show, because now instead of building these bonds with these people, they think, okay, I have to check all the stuff off of my resume if I want to win the game. So I never thought I would be doing this, but Ross, what is your opinion on resumes and Will Wall's part in it?
Will's one of my least favorite characters in the season. Like, it's just not fun. It's just not a fun thing. It's going on. I don't know. You don't need a resume. You just gotta end hot. You don't need a resume. It's just all about, or you can go with the two worst other people. Like, it's just, you got to do what you got to do. There's no checkbox. There's no objective statement, and you don't have references. It's just, no.
Jacob, thoughts on the resume? You know, I think that Will, just coming out of high school, I think he was taking a business honors class, and they were just really teaching about stepping, like, you got to build a resume, Will. You got to build a resume. That's his assignment. That was his project. And then he went out to Survivor, and I recited with him, like, yo, in Survivor, I need to build a resume.
It's funny because Brett even says that in a confessional where he's like, I feel like if you don't want to be treated like a high school kid, you're acting like a high school kid because you're like trying to do your homework and trying to get all these check marks off. Brett, I feel like he's a very underrated character on the season. You know, he doesn't have much, but I feel like even though it goes against Hannah at the tribal where someone brings up the trust clusters again and he just gets pissed off and he's like, can we stop talking about these trust clusters? It's an individual game. There are no trust clusters, and with a very thick Boston accent. But the other side to the Will thing is the Will telling Ken about the plan and then Ken testing him, because besides Will, Ken is the most pretentious person on the season. And I mean that with love. Like they all like I said, they all seem like great people on the season. There was no one on the season that was like hateable. But Ken and Will definitely came off as pretentious or holier than thou or anything else you want to use to describe them. So he tells Ken tests him in front of the other alliance, and we have that shit fest. Ross, what were your thoughts on Ken this season, the youngest person on the GenX tribe, and someone that it seemed like he took himself very seriously?
I mean, someone's got to appreciate the beauty of language, but I liked him more this time around. I don't remember I remember not liking him too much the first time, but no, I think knowing what happens, I think he has a good story. I think knowing that, you know, he can't really win, but he's still kind of like I think he's a good character. I think he's a nice juxtaposition to everybody else, like always like nervous about making big moves in your resume, and Ken's just kind of there. He's just so I think he's a good juxtaposition to that. I mean, the testing Will was ridiculous, but it's hysterically how bad it is. So it adds to the season a lot, I think.
Adam's confessional about it. That's not a test.
That's Will revealing Will's plan. That's not a test. That's a betrayal, dude.
Jacob, what were your thoughts on Ken? Do you think that? I mean, I know that he plays a very old school game at a point in the show's history where that was looked down upon. Now, thankfully, old school game is starting to get brought back in the most recent seasons, which I'm so appreciative for. But at this moment, I don't think that he would have been the one to read the room. And even when he did at day 38 and he read the room and said, David's got to go, it seemed like it didn't seem people were pissed off that he turned on David. It was just more like, how can you say all this and then you vote out David on day 38? It's like, well, he decided to, he put it on his resume. So what were your thoughts on Ken as a player this season? Do you think he could have done well in like season 2 or 3?
I think he could have. Like, I think the biggest thing with Ken, and the thing that intrigues me the most, is that Ken just feels so out of place here. Like I think that a lot of like this most recent seasons, you see this new meta, and you want to play Kate to what the fans are expecting of this new era of Survivor. You want to cast the players who are going to play at the tempo, at the speed that the modern game is being played at. It's super fast. It's ever changing. It's ever so fluid, and it's never static. But Ken being so static all the way through, and being just unwaveringly maybe partially like ego, could partially just be like his unwavering and non-negotiable morals and ethics. Like him being that figure and making it as far this season has been very interesting to watch. I think he would have been a perfect candidate for, for older school seasons, for him to have competed and potentially had dominated something like that. Like we saw Ethan Zahn be the first hero winner, and maybe he could have been a figure that's likened to that, or a Colby or something like that with his physical prowess as well. Although this whole testing Will thing,
it's just so embarrassing.
He just couldn't handle being voted for. Like, he just heard that your name is being said, but I'm with you, Ken. I got you, boy. I got you, my guy. They dapped up.
That is full of cringeworthy moments. Cringeworthy in like a fun way, not in like a I don't know, problematic cringeworthy. Cringeworthy such as Hannah and Zeke by the well, which is my favorite Hannah moment ever. Just because it's so I don't want to know how that happened in real time, because if it actually is how we're being shown, it's like, okay, she's clearly lying because she just kind of looks up like this. Oh no, hold on, I'm thinking. The tribal council that Figgy goes home and Jeff's like, I could marry you guys right here. It's love. Like, there's a lot of cringe that goes along with it. And one of those cringe-worthy things about the season is, and I'm so glad I was able to ask Mama C about this on Worlds Apart, about Worlds Apart. I asked her, does production sit there and ask you or tell you, hey, you should bring up this whole white collar, blue collar, no collar thing in your confessionals? And she's like, no, we just kind of felt like, this is who we are. We might as well talk about it. And I wonder if it's the same for this season, because a lot of the pre-merge is just like, oh yeah, millennials text the letter U, and Gen Xers do this, and millennials do. It's like, okay, I get that that's the theme, but there's absolutely no way that people are talking like this the entire time they're out there, unless they have production sitting there saying, hey, so what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? What did you guys think of, it doesn't take long with this, as they show the Game Changers preview. What did y'all think about this whole millennials versus Gen X basically just being thrown at us in every confessional?
I mean, it's not race. It's not. But seriously, though, like, I don't think it bugged me as much as David versus Goliath bugged me at first. I'm like, heroes, villains, maybe underdogs versus overachievers, sure, but like champs versus contenders, maybe, but like no one's sitting there saying like David versus Goliath. Like, I've been a David my whole life. I've never said that. Like, I've never used that word in my life. At least like generational trauma, like comparing like the differences in eras, like music and politicals and like the world and the scope of culture and society. Like, that's like those types of conversations definitely do indeed happen. I just don't see people parading around like a label, like pronouns, like I'm a Gen Z, I'm a Gen X, I'm a millennial. That was a bit buggy. That bothered me a bit. I just saw this as I just left it at that.
They're doing the intro. Oh, Serena just fell answer. They're doing the intros for the Game Changers. They're showing some of the people that are going to be playing Game Changers. And I just totally forgot about this because, God damn it, Jeff. Sierra came out, and she doesn't get the loudest applause, but Jeff goes, she voted out her mom. Voted out her mom. Oh, my God. It's so embarrassing. So as we move on.
Oh, I actually want to disagree for a second first. I totally think that was not forced. I totally think that staring at a flag that says millennials versus Gen X being grouped by your age is going to have that on your mind a ton. I think that was natural. Besides Jeff's not natural, but I totally think the contestants, they're constantly being reminded that that's like what you're here for. I think that came up naturally.
And it might get you more screen time if you bring up the twist. And another thing that's happening with me with watching it like this now is the fact that Caramoan, I'm bringing up Caramoan, at Final Tribal Council, Caramoan, when Sherry is shitting the bed, she says the phrase, I am a fan, and you guys are favorites. And every season that has happened since then, where there is a versus or an and, I just imagine a finalist sitting up there and saying, I'm blood and y'all are water, or I'm a millennial and you guys are
It's no more ridiculous than calling yourself a hustler.
Yeah,
I'm a hustler.
I'm a game and you're a changer. Like, it's so, I don't know why I have the Sherry thing stuck in my head this time around, but every single season, I'm a white collar and you guys are blue collars. And so, I'm here. So the season progressed, and we are getting a lot of blind sides, but I feel like once again, just like the problem that Cambodia ran into is all of a sudden it becomes we don't have any of these. We have Adam and Jay in the hammock as like a social moment. We have Hannah and Ken on the beach, which is a social moment. But for the most part, it becomes very just like we're just going to show the strategy talk, and we're not going to show these people knowing each other. And I feel like that is a problem that runs rampant for most of the 30s. So if Ross, will go with you first. Do you see that as a problem, or is that something that you prefer?
I think it depends on the season. Like this season, it didn't bother me. I still feel like I knew everyone. Like I didn't really feel like there wasn't anybody I really didn't know. So I think I didn't really have a problem with it in the season. I think you get to know everybody. I think early on they put in the character content. You kind of get to know them. There were a lot of stereotypes on this season, so it was kind of like you kind of know who everybody is.
Jacob?
No, same way. I never felt bothered by that. I think other than me, rest in peace, Sunday. And I think I learned a lot about Will Wall in that 2-episode saga.
The Will Wall edit. We need the Will Wall edit.
I've learned a lot more about Will Wall in those 2 episodes than I did Sunday the entire season. But I felt invested in multiple characters. I felt like I got to know them on a personal level. And honestly, that scene of Adam and Jay in the hammock, if that's not like top 5 moments ever in the show, for me, like, that was
that. Okay. Let's not get crazy.
I'm being serious. I'm being like that really like got me choked up. That I hate crying for stuff like that. Like I'm not a sentimental person whatsoever, but like that, like I don't know. I can't explain it. It just felt. I can't explain it.
I want to bring up Sunday real quick. Just the one thing. Sunday being the person that really caused the whole idol being played wrong during the rock draw episode by whispering that it's going to be Ken, and everyone biting in on it, and they play the idol for Ken. Hannah gets the votes, and we go from there. As the game starts to wrap up, they've gotten rid of most of the threats, and it just remains that David's the only one that remains as the real threat, the one that everyone keeps saying David needs to go. Even though at that point Jay is like he keeps surviving, and Jay is slowly becoming the other big threat. But David goes, and a lot of people that got voted out this season did it with grace, and I feel like we saw that again in season 42. But we get to our final 3, and I remember the first time I watched Final 3. I figured that Adam was going to win, but in my head it was always like, oh yeah, Adam's going to destroy this. Watching it the last couple of times, including tonight, I feel like it was a 2-horse race. Like, I feel like Hannah and Adam were both out there fighting and making great points. And not to say that Ken was a slouch, but it definitely seemed like Hannah was in there fighting, and like a lot of the stuff she was saying was accurate based off of what I was seeing, but based off what we were being shown. So I'm confused. I guess I'm confused as to where this whole Adam took 2 goats to the final thought process came from. I understand that he swept, but never during this season did I feel like Hannah was being dragged. And I mean, they talk about how she makes her own decisions the entire time. That was their entire thing. That their entire argument is Hannah being impulsive. She's making smart decisions. And then Ken, don't feel like he was being dragged. I just feel like he was playing an old school game. So did you guys see these 2 as goats this time around?
I don't really see them as goats, but I even though like this is one of my top seasons, I honestly think this is one of the weakest final 3s ever. I don't think any of them. I think this is an incredibly messy season, And I think that helps it a lot. So I think at the end you're kind of picking from 3 very imperfect players. So I don't really think it's like, I don't see them as GOATs really, because like they're kind of all just kind of, none of them were the strongest in the end.
Okay.
I kind of agree, kind of disagree. I think relatively speaking of the people that made the end game, I think Hannah and Ken, their win equity was very low comparatively speaking. I think that like Brett had that, like the support of maybe like the Sundays, the Chris's, maybe the Jays, or like that contingent of the world. You know, Jay had Taylor, Michelle, Will from the jury. I see Adam potentially swaying some votes over David. Just this commanding lead as far as the jury votes. I struggle to find like a figure on the jury that I'm like is advocating for Ken other than maybe Jessica, and I flagged that for Hannah as well. And going into final tribal council, yes, I do believe that Adam is winning. I don't think him dragging 2 goats was accurate to what we saw on the show. I think David fumbled the ball at the last moment, and Hannah was able to capitalize on that move. Unfortunately, the moves that I agreed when arguing against Adam is just way more convincing and speaks with so much more conviction. Like he's way more articulate and more confident of a speaker than Hannah during this. So I felt that's what
I can't agree with that. Like to that point, like I do feel like Adam was a great talker at that final tribal, and but I don't think that he was talking circles around Hannah at all. I feel like it was very much like this the entire time, and poor Ken is sitting in the background. I think he starts to catch on very early that it's game over for him because his face looks the exact same at Final Tribal as it does when the votes are read, where he also knows he's going to lose. But I can't say that I think that Adam is sitting there and is more convincing than Hannah, because at least from what we're being shown with jury reactions, a lot of them are nodding to a lot of the stuff that Hannah is saying. And Adam just keeps harping on, you fucked up by voting out Brett, voting out Brett first. Like this is your fault. You should have gotten rid of David. Blah blah blah. And Brett is the one that's looking there like very upset about stuff. But like a lot of people are sitting there saying, "Hey, you know what? Hannah is backing up what she's done. Hannah's backing up what she said." But I do feel like. And someone has come out and said that they all plan on voting for Adam anyway going into it. I do feel like no matter how the two of them performed, unless Adam just totally shit the bed, Adam was going to win in that situation. And we get the moment where he talks about his family or about his mom dying or getting ready to die, I guess. And once again, this is now the 3rd time I've had to do this. I don't buy that Adam won because his mom was dying. And anyone that says that is fucked. Because, yes, it does suck to see someone sit up there and watch them cry about, their mom dying. I get it. But I don't feel like, because we've seen so many times in the show where people have cried about other things at the end and not won, just because this person did win in this situation doesn't automatically mean that this person won out of pity. Just like Jeremy didn't win because his wife was pregnant. Just because, when I go back, Lil cried at during Pearl Islands, and I felt for her, and I still would have voted for Sandra. Monica Culpepper cried in Blood versus Water, and I felt for her, and I still would have voted for Tyson. So, like, there are these moments where people do cry and they do tell life stories. Wu talked about how his mom was sick and dying in Cagayan, and I still would have voted for Tony. So, like, I don't know. It bothers me when people go on the Reddits and all this and they say, Adam and Jeremy only swept because they had these things going on in their lives. It's like, well, no, maybe they just played better and the jury all felt like they played better, and that's how it happened. So, Adam's not one of my favorite winners. I don't really, I'm not an Adam guy, but like, I would be torn between him and Hannah to vote for, but I would have been biased. We get to the reunion. They start announcing what next season is going to be with Game Changers, and they're bringing 2 people back from this season. What were you all's thoughts on Zeke being brought back? Because we've already touched on Michaela. What were your thoughts on Zeke being the other person brought back from this season?
What I didn't, so basically, I really, really like Zeke until the second the Rockjaw Tribal Council, and then he goes like then I don't like him the rest of the show. And I'd like the heartiest congratulations. It's like, no, you're grinding my gears. Stop. But no, so I wasn't the biggest fan of it because I was a fan of him until he got. I think there are definitely a lot of players that I like more when they're more likable on the bottom. The second they get control, it's like, oh no. It's like, so I definitely wasn't the biggest fan of that, and I have a feeling that David turned him down, so they probably were like, "Oh, Zeke, do you want to come?"
Really, I feel like it would have been Michaela would be the one that you.
Well, because of like it would be like a man for a man versus a woman for a woman.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's true. Yeah, Jacob, Zeke.
I'm still a bit lost on Zeke. Like, I think same thing with Ross, but I think what really soured me the most on Zeke was his Jury Speaks videos because I watch whatever seasons they provide those for, and Zeke was so gung ho about like the evolution of strategy, and obviously about Tribal Council too, the evolution of strategy and Survivor. Like, if you don't contribute to the evolution, and I completely disagree. I think there's seasons like a Sophia Clark, like Sophia wouldn't have won in Zeke's eyes, or he wouldn't have assessed the merits of her game because she wasn't playing bombastically to change the course of the game. She played subtly. It was smaller moves, subtle moves that kept the course of the game in her favor, not these big bombastic, I gotta change the way Survivor is forever types of moves. That not every winner requires that a move of that magnitude in order to win the game. So that and Michaela, I think I'm just less so annoyed by the returnees and by the choices on here, more so the branding of game changers.
Yeah,
and that alone is just
all about that tomorrow. How it's basically just a brand steal. I will say that Zeke did channel his inner Ken during his jury speech, and it did come off as, I think I may have actually rolled my eyes watching it this time. I'm like, oh God, like, I mean, I feel like Hannah and Adam did answer the question well, but once again, I love the 30s, but it's not my Survivor. But having said all of that, we'll start with you, Jacob. Overall thoughts on Millennials versus Gen X before we bounce. Overall thoughts on Millennials versus Gen X.
9 out of 10, maybe.
No. Overall thoughts.
Oh, overall thoughts. Millennials versus Gen X. I adored this season. This is, like I said, Kagion. I really did like Cook Islands, despite the race war. Winners of War, obviously. Like, some of my favorite seasons of the entire show. Adam, although played one of the messier games of a winner, I honestly would go back and forth about his Tribal Council performance, but I endeared it. I think it's super underrated. I speak the most to Adam personally as a winner. I think my favorite winner, as a game player, who I most want to be is Yule. I most want to be Yule if I were to ever play Survivor, but I feel the most I lived through this experience somewhat as a super fan through Adam, and me seeing Adam succeed and be able to do that in spite of as much personal adversity as he was facing from outside of the game. It's super admirable for me. Adam's probably one of, or if not my favorite winner of the show. So for me, I felt very satisfied by the end of this, and this tumultuous murder mystery, who's going to win the season. If it's not Jay, if it's not David, then who's left? And Adam being left in the rubble. I felt very satisfied by the end of it. I said 9 out of 10, but you could probably call me up tomorrow and I say 10 out of 10 tomorrow. I felt so many great characters, so many people I did not remember. And I feel bad. Bring back Maury.
You're not the first person I've heard say that today. Ross, overall thoughts on the season?
Well, this is definitely one of my top 5 seasons, undoubtedly. You even get Jeff getting hit by a wave. What more could you ask for? I definitely think, I know you said you weren't too big fan of the edit. I think that's one of the better edited seasons. I think you get to know most people. The only thing dumb thing the edit does is try to make you think Will's a threat at one point. That's dumb. But besides that, I think it's really well edited. And I just think it's a very enjoyable season. And it's definitely one of my favorites for sure, by far.
Overall, I do like Millennials vs. Gen X. I probably like it less than I have in years past, but it's still a top 15-ish season for me. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 this time around. I think that overall, I mean, I like the journeys of the players that we are shown. I love the transformations of a lot of the players we're shown, and I love Hannah Shapiro. And that's my last Hannah Shapiro reference of the episode. She is my all-time Survivor crush, never to be topped, not even by Lydia from season 42. Fellas, thank you so much for joining me. Tomorrow, or I might start it tonight. No, I am starting it tonight. We've got Game Changers. God. So I guess I'm looking forward to that. But we are in the final stages now, everyone. We are almost done with this journey. I will be done by September 11th at night. So we're almost a week away. So thank you guys for continuing to follow me on this journey, and we will see you after Survivor Game Changers.